top stories this evening, sponsored by Courts, bringing value home. Massive marijuana camp discovered. Police hunting men who shot at them. 40 years since commissioning of Demerara Harbour Bridge. Engineer Joseph Holder reflects on the construction. Resist the temptation to become lawless. All honest work is honorable, Reverend Messiah tells police ranks. And contraband smuggling into the prison system is embarrassing, says Minister Ramjatan. Administrative defects set to be the main problem. HGP Nightly News begins now. Good evening to our viewers here in Guyana and online. I am Travis Chase with the Monday, July 2 edition of the HGP Nightly News. Here's what you need to know this evening. The existing problem of the smuggling of contraband into the prison system is an embarrassing situation. That was the view expressed by the Public Security Minister, who pointed an accusing finger at the prison administration. Jevon Vickery reports.
When these things happen, it is obviously a management problem.
That was Minister of Public Security Kemraj Ramjatan responding to questions about whether the issue of contraband smuggling could be an administrative issue within the prison system. There has been attempts before and after the July 9, 2017 prison unrest to smuggle contraband into the prisons. Minister Ramjatan explained that the prevailing problem has become an embarrassment for the public security sector.
So what are your thoughts on persons still trying to smuggle contraband, persons storing it over, pens you have, officers still making things over? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, you know, asking for my thoughts, you know, you get angry at what's happening. You feel a sense of despair, but really it just goes to show the quality of some of our prison officers that allow that to happen.
While alluding to a recent incident captured on social media during which several inmates were seen consuming alcohol and exposing contraband, Minister Ramjatan stated that hopefully in the 2019 budget that funds will be provided for a high-tech scanning system.
You can say it's like the abnormal seems to be the rule there, you know, and we're trying as much. I now have to get technological about the thing. You'd have to get scanners at the doors that can pick up these things, so because I don't think you can collude with scanners. But the thing has to get that far now.
Back in May, Director of Prisons Gladwin Samuel said, quote, "Getting rid of contraband in prison cannot be a fight by a few. Collective effort is required. The well-established syndicate may think that they are safe and secure, but they cannot be allowed to continue. We will continue our searches, and those found to be colluding in trafficking contraband will have to answer to the law. We cannot compromise." End of quote. Minister Ramjatan had this to say about alleged collusion within the prisons.
If the individual know, that prison warder know, or the family member that is bringing in the thing and food and all that, that thing can be a disastrous thing. It could create a major problems for our security. Why do they do it? And just for the immediacy of the event, they just allow it. It is entirely wrong. And then we have these guys then posting it on Facebook, having Sirach on Mother's Day. It is very embarrassing and disappointing, extraordinarily.
Jevon Vickery, HGP Nightly News.
61-year-old Batatram Jailal was found hanging in the Lenora police station lockups Monday morning. Police have since launched an investigation. Police in a statement Monday morning said that Jailal was discovered hanging from the lockup's window grill. Investigators believe that Jailal used his shirt to commit the act. 4 other prisoners were in the said cell. The Metamizorg West Coast Demerara pensioner was arrested on Sunday for the rape of a 12-year-old girl, which allegedly occurred on June 29. Minister of Citizenship Winston Felix on Friday endorsed a strong relationship between the public and the private sectors as he publicly expressed gratitude to members of the private sector, among other agencies, for their generous donation to Guyana's hurricane relief efforts in 2017 for the Caribbean countries left devastated by hurricanes Irma, Jose and Maria. More from Rodin James.
The minister was at the time delivering the feature address at the hurricane relief ceremony and cocktail reception hosted by the Civil Defense Commission in appreciation of the Private Sector Commission's efforts in raising more than $25 million in relief support for those affected by the hurricanes.
This occasion is a very welcome one. Welcome because it shows appreciation, or intended to show appreciation, for members of the private sector and all those who were called upon to assist during periods of disaster in the Caribbean, in locations where our people living there were very vulnerable. And your help, your assistance brought significant relief to these people.
The minister recalled that the private sector stood up throughout the period of crisis and chipped in big time to assist the government in its efforts. And this is how a relationship between the government and private sector should be, he says.
My observation, however, arises from the fact that this relationship, this partnership, which seems to have been formed between the government and the private sector commission, needs to be encouraged. It needs to be tended as how you would care your garden. Water it, make sure that the weeds are plucked out, so that this partnership must never suffer from any outside interference. It is necessary that the government and the private sector forge ahead with this partnership, because it is required in very many areas of national disaster and other situations which require combined help. The government alone cannot do it.
Mr. Felix said the government and private sector need to make good on that sound start. He says the time has come for the private sector and government to be developed into a force with one objective, which is development of the people and the economy.
We need to sit down and look at ways in which the private sector and government can develop into a strong fighting machine whenever it comes to defending the safety, the integrity of our people wherever they are.
Minister Felix also used the opportunity to reaffirm the government's commitment to the establishment of resilient and sustainable disaster preparedness and management mechanisms. Royden James, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Royden. After the break, massive marijuana camp discovered. Police hunting men who shot at them. Stay with us. HGP Nightly News. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the HGP Nightly News. A massive marijuana farm has been destroyed while police hunt for about 9 men who opened fire on a party of policemen upon discovery of the illegal farm. Here are the details.
And the name is Sandpit. Then you got this whole big piece here. A lot of trees.
Police acting on intelligence at Underneming Sandpit Backlands on the Essequibo coast say they uprooted and destroyed more than 12,000 marijuana plants, over 500 pounds of marijuana, seized 2 12-gauge cartridges and 5.38 spent shells, along with 2 live cartridges, which were all found in the marijuana camp at Underneming over the weekend. Commander of the Police G Division, Superintendent Kali Pashram, said his ranks were fired upon when they entered the marijuana camp.
It was an intelligence-led operation, Ranks were on foot patrol in the Andonemian Backlands. That's about 10 miles off the main public road when they observed a camp with a group of men. On approaching the camp, they were fired upon. They took the evasive action. The men on firing upon the police fled into the nearby bushes. They were pursued diligently by the ranks. One was captured while the other made good their escape.
Sources said police became aware of the farm early last week and had set up an operation to capture those responsible. Commander Pashram hinted that the camp must have been there for some time now.
On returning to the camp, the ranks discovered a quantity of dried cannabis. There was also another camp close by, which also had a quantity of dried cannabis, amounting to close to about 25 kilograms. The camps also had sleeping hammocks, accommodation for that, kitchen utensils, groceries, and so the area surrounding those two camps, close to 8 quarters of marijuana plants, ranging between 6 inches to 7 feet in height, with an estimated weight of approximately 58,000 kilograms.
This man, Danish Singh, who worked on the farm, was taken into police custody. He attempted to flee the camp upon seeing the police. He is said to be cooperating with the investigation.
They were all destroyed, and that one man that was, or the male that was previously arrested, he remained in custody. Investigation is still ongoing. Search is still ongoing for the remainder that fled the area.
Travis Chase, HGP, Nightly News. The mother of 41-year-old Sunil Ramatar, who is still missing and is feared dead at sea following a pirate attack in Suriname, is still hopeful that her son is alive. Javon Vickery reports.
Ramatar's mother, Chandra Baran, stated that her son became a fisherman at 17 and occasionally returned home to spend time with his family. She stated that every time he returned to sea, there was always a fear of danger. Ramatar was among fishermen on 4 boats carrying more than 20 fishermen who were beaten mercilessly when their boats were attacked off the coast of neighboring Suriname on April 27, 2018 by pirates. Ms. Baran stated that since the disappearance of her son, it has not been the easiest of times for her and the children.
I don't know that. Wait till I start. Because I miss my son. In the easy, got to pain your last your child, and a big, easy. The only thing I hope that you can hear the voice back. That's the main thing,
The mother explained that since the incident, there hasn't been much told to the family, and that no member of her family were able to travel to Suriname for a first-hand grip on the situation.
I'm glad for here, Find out that I went to the station and then sent me to this place, and so then said I can't do nothing. Can I find, nobody like he named. There's clearly another false name. I mean, no, the false name.
The authorities in Suriname were unable to identify several of the missing men since they were known by their aliases. Ramatar, according to his mother, was not known to his colleagues by his real name, which makes the process to find her son a difficult one. Javon Vickery, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Javon. Resist the temptation to become lawless. That was the message to officers and other ranks of the Guyana Police Force Sunday morning. Here are the details. As the Guyana Police Force celebrates its 179th anniversary, Reverend Raphael Messiah has advised members of the police force to resist the temptation of getting involved in all manner of vices that can tarnish their integrity.
I challenge you to rediscover your values as you celebrate your 179th anniversary. And I pray that as you do so, this institution must resist the temptation to become lawless.
Reverend Messiah gave the advice while addressing senior and junior ranks during a drumhead service on Sunday morning. Messiah charged the members of the force to eschew temptation and continue to hold their values high.
It might be power, or it might be money, or it could be sexual favor, or it could be promotion. It could be a number of things. I don't know. But you must know that you're drawn away by your own lust and enticed. And temptation doesn't end there. It moves to the point where it produces sin. And sin produces death. Now these concepts are not in vogue today. There are people who don't want to hear words like sin and death. They say, why are you frightening people with these old-type words? Well, hear this. I subscribe to these words of, it keeps us in check, keeps us constantly evaluating and reevaluating how now we should live, as Chuck Colson asked, how we should manage ourselves. I say to you, as you celebrate today, at the end of this May-June period where it's still raining, I say to you, rediscover your values.
The uniform of a police officer conveys the power and authority of the person wearing it. With that in mind, it is the advice of Reverend Messiah that police ranks should not abuse the power of the uniform.
And some of you, you have discovered that your uniform has afforded you all kinds of power. The respect of your colleague, the respect of the people in the community, and you might want to use this newfound power for your own personal benefit, or the benefit of a group or a cabal or whatever it might be. James said, we are tempted when we are drawn away by our own lusts. So don't look at anybody, look at your own self and see what might be causing you to shift from your base. No human is beyond temptation. I don't care if you work in the King's Palace, if you work in the Presidential Secretariat, if you work in the bishopric, if you work in the diplomatic community. No one is absolved from temptation.
He reminded them essentially of their motto of service and protection to the nation.
And the individuals, officers and other rank, you must also rediscover and have that sense of dignity and pride where you will serve this nation in a way that will bring honor and glory to God and peace and safety to all of us.
Travis Chase, HGP Nightly News.
Minister of State Joseph Harmon is openly lobbying for the preservation of the Demerara Harbour Bridge when the proposed new bridge is operational. 2 is better than 1, Mr. Harmon says. Gordon James reports.
As government prepares to begin construction of a spanking new bridge across the Demerara River, the debate over whether the current bridge should be kept operational has been ongoing. Considerations about the cost of a new wide-span bridge is never in favor of competition from other bridges, so the future of that famous landmark called the Demerara Harbour Bridge is on a shaky ground. But on the occasion of the 40th anniversary of the commissioning of the Demerara Harbour Bridge, State Minister Joseph Harmon said he will be lobbying his colleagues in government to keep the existing structure as well, which will mean that there will be 2 bridges across the Demerara River. Mr. Harmon remarks came as he addressed a gathering on the occasion of the 40th anniversary of the bridge at the Umanayana on Sunday.
I am from over there and I understand what happens in the morning, and therefore 2 bridges are better than 1. I see absolutely no sensible reason to decommission one when you have another one. So from over there, where I'm responsible for politically, I would want to say that I will lend my voice to that chorus which says that we should keep both bridges.
Minister Herman, who is a member of parliament representing Region 3 in government, said that the new bridge is necessary to meet the needs of Guyana's rapid developments and to manage the traffic increase over the river.
Development of Guyana is proceeding at such a prodigious pace that increased traffic across the Demerara River and the expansion of our economic and social base as a nation must take priority. I urge you, the Demerara Harbour Bridge, that as whatever role you have to play in the design and construction of the new bridge, that those principles which guided Joseph Holder and his team will be the foundation of the work which will be done on the new bridge.
Mr. Herman described the undertaking as an indigenous piece of Guyanese infrastructure. He reminded that it was under the leadership of former Prime Minister Forbes Barnum that the bridge was built and that it was just one on a list of developmental initiatives intended to transform the country at the time.
Over the past 40 years, the Demerara Harbour Bridge has had its fair share of challenges, but it has stood the test of time. The bridge's positive impact on the economic and social development of Guyana from the time of its construction to date cannot be denied, and by far outweighs the periodic technical problems and the cost of maintenance of that bridge.
Mr. Herman reminded that there were lots of persons who opposed the idea of the construction of the bridge, but in the end those critics were proved wrong. He urged the minds behind the construction of the new Demerara Harbour Bridge not to sacrifice quality for speed and convenience. Royden James, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Royden. Stay with us. There is more news ahead. Welcome back to the HGP Nightly News. It is exactly 40 years since the Demerara Harbour Bridge was commissioned, and the man behind the construction of the 6,074-feet structure, Joseph Holder, takes us through the period of the idea of the Demerara Harbour Bridge to the victorious day when the bridge was officially opened to traffic. This feature from Royden James.
The original idea for the bridge was proposed by a legislator named Captain John Patrick Coghlan in 1952. Coghlan had done extensive feasibility studies on the possible construction of a bridge spanning the Demerara Harbour, including estimated traffic, tolling proposals, funding avenues, among other things. But Captain Coghlan's work was shelved, but the will to construct a bridge across the Demerara River survived. The man who was tasked with constructing the Demerara Harbour Bridge is now 81 years old, a mathematician, engineer, senior public servant, former general manager of the Guyana Electricity Corporation, poet, and one-time president of the Guyana Public Service Union, Joseph Holder, who spoke to Nightly News about the Demerara Harbour Bridge from the conference rooms to the drawing board to the construction. He said persons who were into hydraulics had done a lot of maintenance work at the embankment of the Demerara River, and it was then an idea was birthed again to have a prefabricated bridge. But because of the novelty of the technology, an overseas-based engineer company that had done some work in Guyana decided to stage a training course in Guyana for engineers on the subject of wide-span bridges. He recalled that one of the lectures that was given was on floating bridges, and that's when, as a young engineer, his curiosity got the better of him, and he started to ask questions.
So at question time, I raised the question, can this technology of floating bridge, which you just lectured to us, can that be used to bridge the Demerara River? And he said, well, I've only been here for 4 days. I haven't even seen the river. Bring the information tomorrow. We'll do it as a class exercise. We assembled next day, and he gave us the design manuals for the highway loading And then he gave us the price, so we designed the bridge and got the price, except that bridge didn't have retractor span. It looked very attractive, and we all were very stimulated by it, but it was just an intellectual exercise, and most of us went back home and forgot about it.
Mr. Holder described the process as an evolutionary process that started with an idea backed by political will.
But what role did then Prime Minister Burnham played in the construction of this bridge, or the idea behind this bridge?
Well, that would reach Mr. Burnham when Thomas Story Engineers Limited, they had a local agent who was Mr. John Jardim, and they asked Mr. John to send up the characteristics of the mouth of the Demerara River to them. And some months later, they submitted a proposal. They designed a floating bridge to span between Houston and Versailles, and this was submitted via Mr. Jardim to the Ministry of Economic Development, which is then headed by Mr. Hoyt, and I assume that went to Cabinet, and that's how that matter came before Cabinet. So it is an evolutionary process which started by a training program in Kampaya, Ghana, which ended up in a commercial offer to the government of Guyana. And
Mr. Holder also explained how he got into the state of play.
Tell us, what role did you play in all of this? How you came in the picture, and you know, and then later.
Well, apart from being a member of the training program and raising the question of floating bridges across the mouth of the Demerara River, Storage in the offer acknowledged that this was a novel technology. It's not the usual kind of bridge, and that they know that it would be questioned by a lot of people. So they made an offer that the government could send up an engineer of their choice to London to look at examples of this technology that exists and to talk to the engineer who was designing the retractor span. And they would stand the expense of that visit. The matter went to Cabinet, and I was selected to go on that. So my job was to go and look at this thing, talk to the guy designing the retractor. At the time, the retractor was only on drawing board, and to come back and tell the government, including Mr. Burnham, that in my view, humble view, this technology can successfully be used to bridge the Demerara River.
And even so, Mr. Holder explained that early running up to the construction phase, there were some challenges.
When the government at Cabinet level decided that they want to go further, the Ministry of Works was brought into the picture, and 3 senior engineers, one of whom was myself, went with Ministry, with Mr. Alsop and others, to look at the site of this bridge. Now, where this bridge was to be located was from the East Bank Road, which is just south of where Banks Brewery is, across the river to Versailles. The harbor master at the time, Mr. Ivan Roman, had indicated that he had approved the location of the bridge as being safe for shipping, because that's one of the concerns you have. When I inspected the site, I thought this was very close to Demerara sugar terminals. And my own personal opinion was that this would involve the risk of ships hitting the bridge while maneuvering to and from that sugar terminal.
The contract for the construction of the Demerara Harbour Bridge was signed on the day of the 10th anniversary of Guyana's independence. That's May 26, 1976. The bridge was commissioned on July 2, 1978, by then Prime Minister Forbes Burnham. The bridge is 6,074 feet or 1,851 meters long. There are 61 spans in the bridge numbered 1 to 61 going from east to west. The first components for the bridge arrived in August 1967. Guyana Stores Limited handed over 3 cranes in November 1976. The assembly of the first flotation was done in March 1977. The construction of the first flotation span number 3 in May 1977. The completion of the high-level span in position in January 1978. Royden James, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Royden, for your reporting. On Friday last, relatives of those fishermen missing and feared dead at sea following that pirate attack in Suriname were given a one-off sum of $100,000 to assist with their families. Here's Jevon Vickery with more.
The recipients were Mary Rodriguez, the mother of Sherwin Lovell, and Chandrauti Dwarka, the wife of Dionarine Goberdan. Both Lovell and Goberdan survived the brutal attack. The relatives of Glenroy Jones, Sonel Ramatar, and Vicky Prasad, who are still missing, also received the government assistance. Minister of Public Security Kamraj Ramchitan explained that the assistance given to the families was approved by Cabinet. He stated that over 15 other families will benefit likewise. Ramchitan stated that many of those who are dead and still missing at sea were the sole breadwinners of their homes. He stated that families from time to time express that it has become difficult to maintain their homes.
A number of relatives did contact the ministry and also the Commissioner of Police, consequent upon the two attacks in Suriname's waters in which so many people died, and indicated that they would need some financial help to at least do a couple of things, that is travel to Suriname and whatever else that it would have taken to ensure that the days of their mourning and so on are financed, as it were.
Ramchitan stated that before the assistance was given to the families, a decision was taken to distribute the funds through a next of kin process. This means that the sum of money were given to the closest relatives of the fishermen. He stated that the cash will be given as a one-off sum.
The amount that we agreed on was $100,000. I know it is not much money, but it is going to help, because some of the relatives that came were asking for $80,000 to $90,000. Some are asking for some more, but we decided that at an average, and the cabinet members agreed, that we are going to give that sum.
Some of those still missing at sea are Ramesh Sanchar 50, Glenroy Jones 20, Talik Knott Mohabir 50, Ralph Anthony Couchman 19, Rajkumar Besesar Ganesh Bihari, Bobby Abraham, Sunil also known as Podak, Ramnarayan Singh, Bharat Haralal, Randy Burnett, and Oleski Maxwell. Jevon Vickery, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Jevon. Your sportscast.